Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Smugglers MMA, where I will be going over the resume of Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor's resume is really short. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, so this will be a very quick video to go through, in my opinion. I think there's only a few names to really mention for him, but with that being said, let's go over the resume tier list criteria. With C tier being I don't care, B tier being contender slash decent enough, B plus tier being almost elite fighters, A tier being elite fighters and maybe champs that weren't as skilled. A plus tier is champions or the best that never were, like Dustin, Gus, and Chad Mendez. And S tier being the best of the best. Now, with that being said, I think the first matchup that is notable is his fight against Dustin Poirier, where both are really young, but going into the fight, Conor just really pieced him up for a round and would end up getting the finish. Now, where I would rate this win is probably B plus. I think he was almost elite. He did lose to Cub Swanson and the Korean Zombie um, early on in his career. I don't think this is a prime Dustin, obviously, because I think his prime was at lightweight, which we will see. Um, but yeah, I think this is a pre-prime Dustin. Probably same with Connor, but B plus. That being said, we have his interim title fight against Chad Mendes because Jose Aldo broke a rib. Now, Chad Mendes would give him a really good fight using his wrestling, piecing him up against the cage, but Conor McGregor would end it in the second round, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, it was a really good fight and a really good name for Conor. That being said, it is Chad Mendes on short notice. He did just fight 2 months ago, which I mean isn't that bad of a turnaround, but short notice, like 10-day notice, Aldo got hurt. I still think this was a really good version of Chad Mendes. He had only lost twice, and that was to Jose Aldo, at least in the UFC and WEC. Um, yeah, I think this is an A tier win for Chad Mendes, or for not Chad Mendes, for Conor McGregor. Excuse me. That being said, we have his unified or undisputed bout against Jose Aldo, where he would slime him out in 13 seconds. Just a great, great win. I mean, not really too much to explain on this. Jose Aldo beat Uriah Faber, Chad Mendes twice, Frankie Edgar, the Korean Zombie, and he's still, Frankie Edgar again. Like, this is a great win. He still competed for belts after his loss, and yeah, I think this is a great win for Conor McGregor. Obviously, S tier win. The work he was doing even outside the cage of just terrorizing Jose Aldo for like months, you know, or weeks at least. I think this is a great S tier win. Yeah. That being said, we have his short notice bout up to weight classes against Nate Diaz, where admittedly in the first round he was looking good, but he would lose the fight in the second round, getting pieced up by Nate Diaz and getting subbed. Now this is a bad loss, quote unquote, because it is Nate Diaz. Like, I don't really rate him as high, or if anybody rates him, let me know why. That being said, it is short notice. It is up to weight classes, so bit of leeway there. I think this is a B tier loss. With that mixed with his rematch against Nate Diaz, where he obviously had a full training camp, got adjusted to the weight class at least, and he would not slime him out, but he would get a very kind of close majority decision against Nate Diaz. I thought he won clearly. Um, yeah, majority decision. Like I said, I think this is a B tier win. Like I said before with the loss, this is up to weight divisions. So if you want to bring it to B plus because of that, I don't mind it. But nah, I think this is a B tier because it's Nate Diaz, who really hasn't done anything. Now that being said, we have his double champ fight against Eddie Alvarez, where, to be honest, he just styled on him for 2 straight rounds. Eddie Alvarez had no answer, was getting pieced up on the feet. I think he even tried to wrestle Conor, didn't work, and he would get the finish in the second round. Now, Eddie Alvarez is a solid, very solid fighter. He beat RDA, he beat Anthony Pettis, beat Justin Gaethje, and he beat Michael Chandler in Bellator, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it wasn't Bellator, but I think this is a very solid A tier win. Just for the names on this resume and for the form he was going into that fight, beating Pettis and RDA. Yeah, A tier 1. With that being said, he would go to box Floyd Mayweather for 10 straight rounds, where he would get finished in the 10th, but he put up a really good fight. Now, you may be asking, what is this doing in a resume to us? Uh, it would all be explained. With his 2-year layoff, he would come back to fight Habib. Now, stylistically, this is a terrible matchup. But getting into the fight, Habib would actually catch Conor and, drop him in the second, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, but yeah, I mean, Conor did take a round off him, but it wouldn't matter because Habib. Actually, Conor was looking very good, at least when striking, because, I mean, obviously, Habib's not a high level striker. I feel like that's obvious. But Habib would just sub him in the fourth. Now, Habib is obviously, I think, one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Top three for me. He's number 3. That's a topic for another day. But he did beat Edson Barbosa, RDA, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. I mean, I feel like this is an obvious S tier loss for Conor. Now that being said, we have his fight against Dustin Poirier. Where, to be fair, I thought Conor was doing really good, and he was winning until he lost. But he was piecing up Dustin, but Dustin has, I think, a really solid chin at lightweight, or at least maybe Conor just doesn't hit as hard as he does at featherweight. But with that being said, Dustin would slime him out in a second with a beautiful right hook that would drop him. Now, obviously, this is a prime Dustin Poirier who beat Justin Gaethje. You know, why am I forgetting? Eddie Alvarez. This Max Holloway, Dan Hooker. Like, this is a very, very Anthony Pettis. Like, this is a very great. Like I said, he's on A plus for a reason. One of the greatest to never win the belt. That being said, we have his rematch against Conor, where again, I thought Conor was doing well, even though somehow he did get 10-8'd. I think that was mainly to the wrestling. And I was boxing the bleeding head off him. But yeah, sadly he was doing really well until the leg break. Now obviously I still think this is another A plus loss that Conor would have. And yeah, really quote unquote sad way to end Conor's career, but he will be back. With that being said, Conor McGregor resume tier list. In C tier or in B tier we have Nate Diaz English. In B plus we have Dustin Poirier at featherweight. At A tier we have Eddie Alvarez and Chad Mendes. At A plus we have nobody. At S tier we have Jose Aldo, and his losses are Khabib, which is an S tier loss, Dustin twice A plus loss, and Nate Diaz at welterweight B. Now, that being said, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I believe Conor will knock out. Well, Conor will knock out Max Holloway, and that would be probably an A plus at least. S tier. We can have discussions on whether Max Holloway is washed or not. But with that being said, off topic. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys.